We don't meditate to get good at meditation. We meditate to get good at life. And part of being good at life is providing for a family and having partners and having great sex. Like this is, so to deny yourself abundance, to deny yourself sexuality does not make you closer to God.
Welcome to the Deja Blu Podcast, where we believe that living a life of magic can be the default. Join us each week as we playfully and authentically dive into the mysteries of life and explore what it truly means to be human. From spirituality, wellness, and all things taboo, we don't hold anything back. So without further ado, let's let the magic unfold. Hello, beautiful humans. Welcome back to another episode of the Deja Blu Podcast. I have had an outrageous blast with this woman over the past 4 or 5 days since she has graced this entire house, the Queendom, with her presence, her light, her magic, her enthusiasm and excitement for life, her intricate embodied storytelling that leaves me on the edge of every single word of what it is that she's sharing, her empowerment of the permission that she has given herself to breathe her magnificence into the space without saying sorry, while also maintaining a very deep level of empathy of her spatial awareness. That is such a gift in itself. So just by being in the presence of this woman, I have met deeper parts of myself that she doesn't even know about, what we will uncover on the podcast, saving the juicy gold nuggets for all of y'all. And before we even do this podcast, there was like something that I was feeling on my heart, and we just raged it out to a song. And anytime, okay, so here was just another thing. We had a dance party at the house the other night, and for me, dancing is such an incredible way of being able to get to know somebody's soul without a single word. The way that we choose to move our body. Now, it's not about actually being a great dancer. It's more so the permission we give ourselves to feel. And that is very strong testament to me around the permission we give ourselves to feel in life in general outside of the dance floor. And so that shows me the amount of work that has internally been done to meet one's self, one's own edges, and one's entirety of all of our emotions. And so when I had Emily Fletcher come meet me on the dance floor the other night, I tell you, I'm feeling it, I'm vibing, I'm having a great time, and all of a sudden enters Emily stage right, and she just looks at me dead in the eye, and she gets down and up and sideways and everything in between, knee sliding across the room, riding brooms, doing performances, laughing, dancing, and the liberation that is flying off of you is just these invisible permission slips that just rest so deeply in the core of my being that they last so much longer than the present moment. And I've received so much medicine from the essence of who you are. So that's like my personal experience of your radiance. And I've been able to witness the empowerment, the transmissions, the activations, the liberation of shame and guilt, what you've done for group settings at Burning Man. And there's just been different spaces that I've witnessed your activations at Arcadia, and then it's just been these last few days that I've really actually got to know you, and you are consistently epic across the board. So it's not just who you are when you're standing on stage, but it's also who you are from the moment you wake up, and we're doing our saunas and our cold plunging and all of the beautiful things in between. And so that's outside of my own personal experience. You're also a incredible author, writer, entrepreneur. You guide hundreds of thousands of people around the world into a deeper Ziva meditation practice. You host retreats all around the world. You have introduced so many people into deeper levels of sex magic and the liberation beyond their shame and their guilt. You're also a mother of incredible son Jasper, who is a soon-to-be paleontologist.
Little known fact.
And all around incredible sister, lover, muse, and inspiration, and mother to so many of us. So Emily Fletcher, welcome to the Deja Blu Podcast.
I don't think I've ever cried so many times in an intro. That was like 3 tear jerkers. Wow, Blue. Being seen by you is such a gift. I admire you so much. Your impeccability of spirit, your profundity of imagination, and now like your playfulness that I am just starting to get to know is such an honor to be in the presence of. And so thank you. That mirror, that reflection really means a lot to me. Thank you.
It really is rare, and also such a beautiful gift to be met by a sister, and not only be met by a sister, but be celebrated and cherished and seen and inspired by. And something that really stands strong for the way that you weave in spaces is that you are a curious person. You're interested to ask really great questions. You listen intently to the response, and then you reflect the beauty that you see, which I believe is a 3-step process to melt the heart of anybody. And I don't know if you knew the context of those 3 steps, which dropped in for me a few years ago, but the way that you weave in the space, I'm like, oh, she's picked up on that, even though you probably not have the context for it. But the way that you enter a space, there's 2 ways, right? You're a very interesting human. However, there's 2 ways that we can present to the world. We can be an interesting human or an interested person. And I found that sometimes when people are very interesting, they then just talk about themselves all the time because they're interesting, right? There's a lot of stories to share. However, the magnetism is activated in the presence of somebody that's a very interesting person, but they're interested. And you 1000% are an interested human. And so
it's like, how do you get to be interesting without being interested?
I mean, well, how do you get to be interesting without being interested?
Right? Like you have to absorb the stories of others. You have to absorb the knowledge of others. You have to absorb the transmissions of others in order to become interesting.
Right.
Yeah.
100%. Yeah, I didn't even really lace the 2 together, but that makes perfect sense. If you genuinely are an interested person, then it's because it's a byproduct of listening deeply, which I think that's what you've essentially done for so much of your life, is you've absorbed, listened, learned, and then created your own version of and created your own fingerprint of. And also from the stillness of your own latent genius, you've then been activating places and pieces within others. And there's something that I just really want to dive into straight off the bat, is the way that you weave in the world doesn't feel like it holds much shame and guilt. And specifically around your eros, your pleasure practices, sex magic, and what you've been speaking into recently. And I'm curious what your journey has looked like for you around the liberation of your own shame and your guilt, specifically around your eros and your sensuality, because the way that you walk into a space and the way that you claim your presence and the way that you're not apologizing for your presence is so inspiring to me, and also illuminating where I'm still kind of shrinking a little bit. And so I'd love to hear a little bit about your journey. Surely you didn't come out, I mean, maybe you did come out of your mama's womb just claiming that shit, but there must have been an unlearning and a relearning along the way.
Yeah. So actually, the funny that you bring up coming out of my mother's womb, because my mom jokes that I was born on stage. There was actually she was at a teaching hospital, and there was a whole team of nurses that watched my birth. And it was actually recorded. But it was actually very dramatic because I was 3 weeks premature. I had a heart murmur and I had jaundice, and they told my mom I was going to die. And there was an audio tape of it, like a cassette tape, because I'm 43 years old. I was born in 1979. So they made a cassette tape recording of it. And I remember listening to it when I was a little girl and feeling like, I probably should not be listening to this right now. I didn't really know what trauma was, but I was like, this is probably not a good idea to listen to my own birth, but I did. Then I grew up Southern Baptist. I'm from Tallahassee, Florida. I grew up Southern Baptist, and there was a lot of shame around sexuality, a lot of, we don't talk about that. Self-pleasuring is a sin. It's just for a man and a woman. You only have sex after you're married, all of that. Stuff that most people are swimming in, that conditioning and indoctrination that most of the world is swimming in to some degree. And I remember even at a young age, having this sweaty man in a khaki suit yelling from the pulpit, telling me what I shouldn't do with my body and being like, that is not it. And then I got to college and I started studying musical theater because that was when I felt the closest to God. And so singing and dancing and acting, I loved it so much, but what I loved was actually the unity that was created in the people, right? Being on stage with a group of people dancing in unison, singing in harmony, all working towards this creative goal. That felt like divine play to me. But the thing I would always get cast as was the whore. I would joke that I'm so diverse, I could be an English whore, a French whore, a German whore, an American whore.
The 50 Shades of whore.
Yeah. And so even though it was a character, it was roles that I was playing, but I was dancing in my sexuality then. And then I got on Broadway. And I was on Broadway for 10 years, and I became world class at making people want me. I was professional at knowing how to be wanted, to move every part of my body, move my eyes, bring people in, be the embodiment of this show girl, right? But I did not know want. I did not know my own desire until very recently. And so, I was very much sitting quietly in a chair, teaching meditation, speaking about neuroscience, framing this stuff as a high performance tool, which I'm very proud of. But then 2 years ago, almost 3 years ago, my life really radically changed when I asked for a divorce. And then 3 weeks later, I met Layla Martin, your roommate, my now best friend, world famous Tantra teacher, and my cosmic lover, Adam. And then a few months later, I moved in with Regina Thomashower, AKA Mama Gina. And so all three of these people in my life have been these huge liberating forces. Talk about a walking permission slip, like that they've dedicated their whole lives to deconditioning themselves and deconditioning hundreds of thousands of other people. And so I've had the very good fortune of intimately weaving with these people. And anything that was left, any shame, any conditioning, any stories left have really transmuted over these past few years. So it's like I already knew how to tap into that eros, right? Like I've been dancing with it my whole life. To be on stage and to be magnetic, you have to play with sexual energy, even if you're not doing it consciously. Like I watched Hugh Jackman in a Broadway show a few months ago, and I was like, oh, like now that I can see it, now that I can see sexual energy, like this man is masterful. Like he's basically making love to 3,000 people at the same time energetically. That's why he's so charismatic. But I don't know that I consciously could see that before. So it's been this combo platter of like natural aptitude to tap into it, and then really good fortune of calling in and magnetizing great people. And I still have a lot of work to do. I still have a lot of work to do.
Well, from my own personal experience, witnessing you guiding others in their self-pleasure practice and activating the frequency of pleasure in a group environment. So I come in from this, I don't know, British boarding school upbringing, and you know how the Brits are, and you
Stiff upper lip.
Yeah, that goes with your monogamous partner and everything else. That's not allowed. Slut shaming, and being called a whore, and all these things. But like really basic stuff was just sort of like my childhood. Yeah. So then when those labels are no longer present, well, who becomes the perpetrator? I do. So I didn't realize how much of a cage that I had placed my eros in until I was in the presence of you and Layla and Regina, and being able to have the blessing of being able to witness you all. And then the way that you've entered into my reality has been, I mean, you're wearing, like fully dialed, you're leading a whole group of individuals, like full power activation, witnessing you on Aubrey Marcus' podcast and talking about sex magic. And so from my perspective, you've been able to gift me what Layla and Regina have gifted you. And so the power of a woman that has reclaimed her sensual and sexual energy is A, going to trigger, and B, going to liberate. But the trigger ultimately is there to teach us something. So I would love to hear a little bit about your journey around. So in this reclamation, of course, there's an acknowledgement that there's so much more also to go. And at the same time, how do you navigate the projections of shame and guilt that is placed on you? Because you're a powerful woman that's claiming her worth. So that's also going to bring up the forces of jealousy and denial within others.
Well, I almost am a little afraid to speak this because I don't want to jinx it, but I have had like the most charmed path so far. Like it has just been like golden footstep after golden footstep. Like the path just keeps illuminating itself. And I don't know if this is outrageous bravery or just blind naivete, or if the world is actually just changing frequencies, and if we are really on the precipice of this new sexual revolution, which I think is actually the truth. Because I've always been able, if I have one superpower, it is being able to feel like what's next, like what's about to be the next thing. Like I started the world's first online meditation training in 2013. I had spent 10 months building it. I spent $25,000 building this course, which was more money than I had made in a year. And I had 6 weeks leading up to it, and I did a call, my first sales call, and 3 people signed up. Like I made like $700 on a $25,000 investment. And I was like, oh no, I've made a horrible mistake. And my ex-husband, much to his credit, was like, stay in the game. Like, it's just not yet. And I feel like we're just, and so I had that moment with meditation where like, why isn't everyone doing this? And now everyone is. Like, meditation is so mainstream. There's millions of apps, there's millions of YouTube channels. And I feel like we're there with sacred sexuality. I feel like we're just on the precipice of people really starting to learn that we can use the most creative force that we have in order to manifest. And so to be a bridge in that feels like my role to play in this. So I've not actually received too much shame or blowback, but I've also been so far a little under wraps, like I've been keeping it a little close to my chest, sort of until the release of this new podcast that I'm birthing in this studio. And so I don't know if that blowback is coming, or if my ability to articulate sort of triggering esoteric concepts in a way that is both attractive and accessible is protecting me from that. So it remains to be seen. Regina keeps warning me. She's like, Emily, like, are you sure? Are you sure you want to do this? You're going to get your heart broken again and again and again. So far, it's been like sunshine and roses.
I 1000% am picking up on that piece around the depth of your claiming and the aligned essence of your belief is therefore not creating it to be as much of a prominent vibrational match to those that are questioning.
Yeah.
But if there's any aspect of our psyche, for example, like if we start a new program and we price it at X amount, and then there's this little voice inside of our head being like, who the heck do you think you are? Pricing it at that? What are you doing?
Yeah.
So then for example, put it out, and then all of a sudden, who do you think you are? And then it's like, oh, yeah, wait, who am I? And then it's
you know what? I'm going to give it for free. I'm going to pay you. You take my course, I'm going to pay you.
Exactly, because it's a match to the part within our own psyche. However, that's been one of the consistent things that I felt with your presence is this depth of claiming that I'm just so fascinated by, inspired by, activated by, and giving me the opportunity to look at myself of where could I claim a little bit more. I would love for you to just share, you talk about utilizing pleasure as an opportunity to manifest what you want to create. I'd love for you to break down what are you talking about, right? I'm coming from like, I understand because I've also like been in the parameters of these incredible, what we call sex switches. However, for those that are listening and tuning in, they've got this on their headphones and they're on a walk with the dog. And if you're on a walk with your dog with the headphones on, this one is for you. What is this? What is the ability to utilize our sexual sensual energy to direct it into a position that is placed with our attention and intention?
Yeah. So I've been teaching manifesting for a long time, right? Like that's Ziva. It's mindfulness, meditation, and manifesting. And there are some key ingredients in order to be an effective manifester. You have to have a clear intention. You have to have a burning desire. You want to take inspired action, detachment. Like these are all the key ingredients. So when you start to add pleasure to that equation, you're basically supercharging the manifestation that's already in place. So to be very honest, manifesting is an advanced technique. At Ziva, I have people learn to meditate first, to tap into the unmanifest first, to remind themselves that they are actually God pretending to be human first, to flood their brains and bodies with dopamine and serotonin so that they have access to that visceral reality that their bliss is only ever found inside. We do all of that first. Because if you're trying to manifest from a place of lack or need or less than, then we get into the all be happy when syndrome and we start to have a death grip on our desires and we think that those desires will make us happy. And that is a recipe for not manifesting. It's a recipe for frustration. And so if from prayer or art or however it is that you remind yourself that you are the ocean inside of the wave, from that place, we simply ask the question, like, what would I love? What would I love? And then we listen. What would I love? Not what do I need? Not what do I want? Not what's going to look good on Instagram, but like, what would my soul love? And then there might be something standing in the way of that, some disbelief, something, just a funk. And then we want to clear the channel, right? So that might look like a rage journal or punching a pillow or doing an angry dance like we just did, or having a good cry, like anything to just open up the vessel, clear the channel. Reclaiming your pleasure. For so many, they've been shamed to think that it's not theirs, that it's wrong or dirty or bad. So some sort of a reclamation practice, which might be dancing in front of a mirror. And then from that space of sort of clarity on the dream, a clear channel, then we start to build the charge, which you don't have to do this with sexual pleasure, right? Like you could do it with breath, you could do it with dance. You could do it simply by like, massaging your hands if you like. It's just easier, honestly, if you are pleasuring yourself, because it's such a direct access to so much, like so many powerful internal chemicals. Dopamine, serotonin, oxytocin, endorphins, norepinephrine, which again are all of the chemicals that we need to train our body that our dream is safe. Mm-hmm. So many of us are scared of our dreams. And so when the opportunity comes, which it will, because you wouldn't even have the desire if it was not already on the way, right? The desires are divinely manifested. So the desire is actually just the breeze that precedes the train in the subway tunnel, right? And so what we do when we embody the manifestation, it's like we're readying ourselves for the opportunity that's already on the way, so that you get to feel, to like make love to your dream, so that when it shows up, you feel deserving, you feel ready, and that you start to vibrate at the same frequency of the dream. Because so many of us, when we're manifesting something big, there's a piece of it that still feels unworthy. And when you get out of, and that happens in the mind, right? That fear, that unworthiness that happens in the mind. So these are really embodied manifesting tools. So it's like we're bringing that desire into the body and swirling it. So I talk in terms of, I'm trying to make this language really accessible for folks. So what I'm calling this is pleasure prayer. Just simply using your pleasure to pray as we build the charge in our hoo-ha, which again is like a really simple term that is all genders, male, female, trans, cis, all genders. And it includes the anatomy and the energy center. So we start to build that charge in the hoo-ha. We let it build all the way up into the heart and then all the way up into the head. And the moment of peak pleasure, it's like you're dedicating that energy to your vision, to the thing that you want to create. And that's a really foreign idea for a lot of people too, that you could actually dedicate your pleasure to something, because we're in this like sort of masculine zero-sum, like goal-oriented, well, let me just like get off and be done, right? Or it's just stress release. Or it's like I think Regina calls this, and I am sorry, but she calls it a crotch sneeze. Which you could never unhear that term. But this is a very different practice, right? This could take 20 minutes, an hour. And it's really about simply building the pleasure and the charge in your body and dedicating it to your dream. Now, the cool thing is that every single time we orgasm, we don't make a baby, right? Because if we did, it would be very crowded on Earth. And so like, thank goodness that doesn't happen every single time. And yet we have that level of creative power available to us in that orgasmic state. And so it's like, where are we directing that? The veil is thin. And when I ask people how they feel after the orgasm, it's usually peaceful, blissful, connected, pure, beyond myself, melted, joyous. And that is a really powerful place to manifest from. Much more powerful than like you're driving to work, picking up your kids, going to get milk, gotta get dog food before your vacation. Like to manifest from that stressy fear place, there's no fertile soil for the seeds to take root.
How do you see pleasure and sensual sexual energy, building that energy, and the difference in the manifestation quality of laughter?
I said this to my boyfriend yesterday. He went to a comedy show last night. It was the opening of a new show in Austin. And I said, hey, Blue on my podcast said that, when you're in aisle 3 at the grocery store and orgasm is not available to you, play is, laughter is, it is a release. It is this, like, you're in on the cosmic joke. you're flooding your brain and body with beautiful endogenous bliss chemicals. And so I invited him. He was going with his co-founders and friends. I was like, what if you guys use this as a collective prayer time? And so he didn't use it as a collective prayer, but he did himself. He was like in this heightened ecstatic, because laughter is its own ecstatic state, right? There is like laughter meditation, laughter yoga, where you just laugh and laugh and laugh. And so he would place some orders from these heightened, elevated states. So I think, you're right. Like if sensuality or erotic energy is not available to you for any zillions of reasons that it's not, you're with your mom at church or something, then yes, we can use laughter and play.
You do it so well with your son. And it is such a gift to witness the way that you interact with your son. Your son is 9?
He'll be 5.
Oh, 5.
I know. He seems like he's 9.
He's so he's so youthful, of course, but like so developed. Like his conversation, his communication, his presentation of his paleontology dinosaur project with his friends, and the way that he's describing it to them, the way his friends are so interested in what he's got to say, as opposed to being like, oh, boring. They're so fascinated. They're asking questions. He's playing drums and dancing. But the most important thing is that you're right by his side as his student, laughing and playing with him. And I see when you weave with him that you see through his eyes and therefore receive the gift of magic that is always around us. However, as adults, we've become disconnected with that latent genius that you have rekindled, reactivated within your relationship with Jasper. And I think that this is like prime manifestation space too. If you two are laughing together in the genius of finding the magic in the mundane.
Yes. And he really is my biggest teacher. And thank you for like reintroducing these concepts of play and laughter as manifesting tools, because I don't think I would have connected those dots so easily. So truly, thank you for that gift. And yeah, he's wild. Like I can't wait for you all to really meet and drop in, because he's so special.
I can't wait to play.
He's so special.
So you're also the queen of meditation, and you have a course called Ziva, and there have been hundreds of thousands of people that have gone through this program.
Well, 50 so far, 50,000.
50,000? Okay, so we're almost there. 50,000.
I mean, 50 is one click away from 100. Yeah. It took me 10 years to do 50, but let's go for the next 100.
50,000 is a lot of humans, though.
Yeah, and just to clarify, it's not like 50,000 people have downloaded an app. Like 50,000 people have like gone through a 15-day training and learned to do this on their own, where they don't need me anymore, because I'm really big on self-sufficiency, and now have like a twice-a-day practice that they can do for the rest of their lives.
So how do you teach meditation, right? Because I think that we've got this experience, or this idea collectively, maybe, that when you meditate, you close your eyes, but it's more so just like thinking with your eyes closed. But like, how do you teach meditation? How do you get people into a place of being like, I have 4 kids and I got a day job and I got all these responsibilities. Why is meditation important? How do I get started? And why would it be important for me to take some sort of course when the general perspective on meditation is just close your eyes?
Well, I mean, try it. You know what I mean? Like, you are not a good data point, okay? So like, you're like a very special fish. But for most people, if they just close their eyes, like that's what their parents did to them to torture them, for punishment, go to timeout. People, anyone listening, like, when's the last time you sat down and closed your eyes and didn't do anything for 3 minutes, 4 minutes? Probably for most people, never. They weren't listening to a song, journaling, actively thinking about something, or sleeping, right? And so it's not something that we're trained at. And I really would argue that meditation is a skill. And it's fascinating to me that people won't take the time to learn a skill that is going to optimize the thing that is making every single decision in our lives and printing every single cell in our bodies. When people are like, oh, I don't have time to meditate, I'm like, what the fuck else are you doing? Like, truly, like, because people don't understand how much stress is costing us. Like, it is truly making us stupid, sick, and slow. And if you look globally, there's so many shifts happening, but the whole world went through basically a near-death experience. The whole world faced its mortality in a different way, over the past few years. And so the ripple effect of that is that it's woken some people up. You face death and it wakes you up. It makes you really live. And for some people, it was very traumatizing and really created many, many, many layers of stress. And now we see that stress playing out in this fight or flight. So many people are looking for an enemy. They're looking for someone to blame. And now there's this unprocessed trauma. Even for me, like in New York City, I had an amazing friend group of 24 people. 23 of them left New York in the pandemic. And like that was like a bougie high class problem as far as problems go with COVID, but still losing my friend group felt traumatic. And I didn't do a therapy session on that. I didn't do any tapping on that. So I have this like unprocessed stress in my body from that. And that's just one tiny little drop of the collective stress that the planet has gone through. And so we're seeing the ripple effect of that now where we're bifurcating. You're the enemy, they're the enemy. We're all looking to fight something. When actually, if collectively we were to get into stay and play, if we were to get into that sympathetic nervous system or parasympathetic, right, that rest and digest, we wouldn't be so quick to be looking for an enemy or someone to blame. We would actually just have more resilience to feel it. So I actually have, on my last retreat, I had a woman who has 10 children. Not one, not two, not three.
10.
10
You need a minibus.
Yeah. I mean, really, like a total mystery to me, but she meditates every day, twice a day. I have taught CEOs of Fortune 500 companies, like Oscar award winners, NBA players, like people who are really quote unquote busy. Mark Hyman says that he now, when he does Ziva, it gives him back 3 hours in his day. So a lot of the drum that I've been beating over the past 10 years has been like, hey, this thing is going to give you more time. It's going to make you more money. It's going to make your sex better. And so I very much was wrapping the powerful medicine of meditation in the candy coating of sex and money. And which that's true. That's true. And then it creates this beautiful foundation to build these other spiritual practices on top of.
So I woke up this morning and I was walking around the house and I had no idea. I didn't even realize you were in the corner of the room meditating and just having your little moment in your little space to just drop into that solitude. And even though there was sort of my noise moving around the house and talking to the dog, before I realized that you were actually meditating, I looked over at you and there was just this peacefulness and this stillness that was just emanating all around you from this constant, every single day, twice a day or once a day? Twice a day. To check in with the center. And what I've noticed is even just when I look at you in that state, I see you like a grand oak tree and your roots are going deeper and deeper and deeper into the center of the earth. So that then, things happen, a podcast and this and then a plate is smashed and dogs over here barking and then this happens and it's just, whatever. They get the text message from the thing that you didn't want to hear. So the wind is blowing. However, the tree is only as sturdy as the depth of the roots. And the depth of the roots is a contribution of every morning and every night, non-negotiable. You drop into that place of stillness so that then when you're in the presence of very strong energy or conversation that's challenging, you feel so grounded and rooted in your presence that when the wind blows, the tree's not being uprooted. It may sway slightly, but it's not going anywhere.
Thank you for that reflection. And one thing I wanted to say is when you were like, you claim so much, but you don't apologize. When I was in college, I went to Florida State University. I was a theater major.
FSU. Tallahassee, baby. That's a party school.
I was the number one party school when I was there.
Yeah.
I might have contributed to that.
Which country? I can definitely see you upside down on a beer bomb or something.
Oh yeah, I definitely did. Like, what are they called? Like keg stands for my 21st birthday.
Outrageous.
Yeah,
I came out from England and I was in like military boarding school, and I went to college in Florida.
Oh,
yeah. In between Tampa and Orlando in Lakeland.
Oh,
it was a small private college.
What school?
Florida Southern College,
okay.
FSU. No,
FSC.
FSC.
So
Sorry.
close to
FSU was you. FSC was me. All these letters. So I wasn't that far away from you, but Florida is a party place.
Yeah, it's a whole other universe down there. But I remember this one time we would have a call board, and the call board is where they would put like, here's the new cast of the new show, and here's the new schedule. It was the nervous system of the whole theater school. And I went up to look and see like, did I get the lead? Did I get the role that I auditioned for? And I was trying to make my way to the front and I was like, oh, sorry. Oh, excuse me. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. And I apologized like 6 times on the way to the board. And this senior girl pulls me aside. I was a freshman and she was like, stop apologizing. You don't have anything to apologize for. I was like, oh, I'm so sorry. I was like apologizing for apologizing. And so it got on my radar. So the fact that you say that back to me is actually like a really big compliment. But then when I was acting and then teaching acting and helping run auditions, it tells you so much. When you're behind the table and you watch 1,000 people come into a room wanting a job, and how many people walk in and it's like, oh, is it okay if I sit this chair? Oh, I'm so sorry. Can I, is it, and they're just so uncertain, so unsure, so apologetic for their very existence. And it makes you nervous. It makes you nervous to be around that energy. And so that's when I started to really cultivate it. Like, if anyone deserves to be here, I deserve to be here too. My friend Susan Blackwell says, no one above, no one below, haters to the left. Like, no one's better than you. No one's worse than you.
No one above, no one below. Haters to the left. I love it.
Yeah, that feels like a very blue slogan.
God, it's brilliant.
Yeah.
That's great. Okay.
Yeah. Actually, you should have Susan Blackwell on if you're interested. She's she's a Tony Award-winning writer, performer. She consults with Disney and Pixar. Whenever I give talks, I hire her to like help me craft it and just like make it make sure that the essence of what I want to communicate comes through. If I've scripted a talk literally one time in my life, but the one time that I did, I hired Susan.
Oh, it sounds amazing. And what I'm also receiving here is that sisterhood has been such a huge implementing part of your path.
Yeah.
From your experience with Layla to Mama Gina, Regina, to the women in your life that have, like, you know, even this woman that pulled you aside and was like, stop complaining. Oh, stop complaining. Stop apologizing for your very existence. And then in return, the permission that you've also granted me in your presence, like there's something there's a theme here that I'm picking up on. Would love for you to just speak into the role that sisterhood has played in the evolution of your consciousness and the claiming of the magic of who you are today.
Yeah. So what's so funny is I just had this thought this morning because as I was getting ready and doing my makeup, I was on a Zoom call with this thing called Council of Queens, and it's an entrepreneur group. I think there's 8 of us. It's like 8 female entrepreneurs in the wellness space, and we've been doing it now for about 9 months, I think. We meet once a month, 2 hours, and it's just a place to bring our greatest successes, our greatest challenges, because it is so unusual. It's like less than 3% less than 3% of female-owned businesses cross the 7-figure mark. And that's like an abysmal figure. 3%. 3% of female-owned businesses cross the 7-figure mark. Yeah. And so it's a really tiny, it's like a small pool. And so to be able to support each other and help each other and ask those questions, and because just like sex is shamed, so is money. And for it to be a woman who's making money, and certainly a woman in the spiritual space making money, it's like, how dare you, you know, you should not want to put your son in school or wear clothes or pay rent. And it's just the fact that we're willing to like, it's totally fine for petroleum executives to make hundreds of millions of dollars. But if someone who's teaching meditation and raising the consciousness of the planet, they should be poor because that is holy. Like it's a podcast for another day, but sisterhood. Right before I got here, I was
but that's a whole subject in itself. I'm so down to go down that path.
Great. So I was on this Council of Queens. I mean, we're in Queendom West. I live in Queendom East. So like that sisterhood feels really strong to me. I have an amazing sister. Her name is Jessica. She is 7 years older than me. And we've had such a beautiful, fascinating relationship because 7 years is a lot, right? It's a big gap where it's like she very much mothered me. Like my mom worked a lot when I was little. And so my sister played a huge role as a parental role to me, and then moved out when she was 16. And so I was 9 when she moved out. And so we're now like, my mom just turned 80 and we got to really like be a team throwing my mom's 80th birthday party. And my mom comes from a family of 10, and it was 9 women, 1 man, and the man died early. So it was really like, matriarch is like in my cells.
I can feel it. It runs strong and it's good medicine. Then I think that this is like a great segue into what you just talked about. Like this is a really juicy topic here around what it means to be a woman on the spiritual path that is making money for what it is that she's creating, and therefore then the shame and guilt that comes with that. And how do you think that Or if at all, do you think that shame is related to sexuality or like interwoven in some sort of way?
That's interesting because, they're both at the root, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like creativity, survival, money, sex, they're all these like lower chakras. And so if they're blocked or if you're not talking to them or accessing them, then they can both sort of wither, your sexuality, your sensuality, and your abundance. What I have found is that in the past year, so I took a 3-month sabbatical last year, and Ziva had its best financial year to date. So that was wild evidence to me that actually being in my feminine, leaning back, making space for new cognitions, being in magnetism and receptivity is the frequency of the time, which is very different than how I started the business. It was a different age. In 2010, it was a different world. Like it was, my book is called Stress Less, Accomplish More. I was like, meditate so you can accomplish more. Just different paradigm. And so I do think that what it proved to me, taking that sabbatical, making space to birth and nurture these new things that wanted to come through, and then the fact that more people were drawn to my work, more people were seeking me out, it felt like a real high five from nature of like, keep going. Like the world needs this message. I know it's scary to talk about sex, even say the word sex, and people get like hella triggered, And again, I'm Southern Baptist. Like I've not even really talked to my mom and sister too much about this work. Like that's the thing that's going on in my mind. I'm like, I seem brave and I seem super claiming, but like there's still, like I haven't really sat my mom down and be like, hey, so I have a dream about 80,000 people climaxing in Dallas Cowboy Stadium at the same time. Will you be there? I haven't really done that yet. She probably is not a subscriber for the Deja Blu podcast, so I think we're safe. But unless you like pull out this clip on social and someone sends it to her Facebook. So, there's many ways that I'm brave and there's many ways that I'm not, but actually money was a tough one for me. Like I remember I would get those comments of like, how dare you, like, how dare you charge money for your meditation class, and meditation should be free. Because it's not only being a woman, it's not only being in the spiritual space, it's not only making money, but because we have price anchored meditation as free, right? That we think that it's only monks that are doing it. And by the way, definition of a monk, well, there's lots. But in India, you're either a monk or you're a householder, and it's less than 1% of the world's population that is monastic by nature. And that means that like you don't want to have a family. You don't want to have sex with people. You don't want to live in society. You actually want to be reclusive and celibate. That's your desire. And for us to try and be monastic when we're not does not make us more holy. Right. And I think it's one of the big games of translation that has made us feel unnecessary shame around sexuality and unnecessary shame around money, because we think that the monks, because they have these seemingly superpowers, it's not because they're special. It's just, they're just have different practices. They're contributing society in a different way. If you don't have a job or kids or like too many things to do during the day, then you can help to contribute the collective consciousness through laundering your own consciousness. So it's just a different modality versus people like us, people that are householders who want to have kids and have jobs and be in society. We're doing different styles. And so they require less time, but we do those styles so that we can get good at life. We don't meditate to get good at meditation. We meditate to get good at life. And part of being good at life is providing for a family and having partners and having great sex. Like this is, so to deny yourself abundance, to deny yourself sexuality does not make you closer to God.
So it's continue to unravel the shame and the guilt that is holding these specific pieces captive, while also recognizing that we can live in a reality where we can receive it all, which is, I think, is actually sometimes very triggering to even say that, specifically with the amount of suffering that is happening on the planet for people when you say, oh, well, you can have it all. And then it can kind of go into this narrative of privilege. And of course, there's many different layers around that specifically. However, what I'm hearing from you is the depth or the deepening of your feminine principle of your magnetism. And that is found in the stillness. And the stillness is found in carving out very like specific times of non-negotiable meditation and navigating the internal waters so that we can actually align with the reality that is there for us, as opposed to hustle, chase, push down, step on, dog eat dog, go out and make it happen. Yes, there's a degree of aligned action, because if we just sit on our sofa at home and we just meditate all day, then actually it's not, the energy is not being put in motion. However, the aligned action but based from a place of, I know who I am, I know why I'm here, and I know how I serve, and I've anchored this in morning and night, is now aligning you with a magnetic force field so that when you show up to the space, it's not about what you do, it's about who you be while you do it, that allows it to come to you with ease and grace.
Yes, so well said. As a matter of fact, just this morning, we were talking to Matrix, our DP over here.
Yeah.
And he was saying, like, from watching all these episodes and seeing all these people, he's like, the people who are making it are the people who are doing both. They're saying the prayers and they're walking the walk. Like, it's not just about the 5D. It's not just offer up the prayer and take a nap. And it's not just hustle and grind. It really requires that masterful simultaneity of like absolute clarity of the vision and full and total detachment of the result and taking, like you would say, aligned action.
Those that I feel myself to be super drawn to and inspired by are the ones that have integrated the masculine go with the feminine flow. The masculine essence of structure, numbers, follow through, being on time, agreeing, to show up at this certain space and this certain time at a certain date, and actually doing that and following through with it, being able to be impeccable with their word. And then that combined effort of showing up and then nothing needs to be said per se. It's not like I go there with an agenda, but more so then in the softening of the feminine principle is the embodiment of I know who I am, I know I'm here, and I know how I serve, and my presence alone is already worthy and is already enough, and showing up with that essence with also the masculine that's holding it in place, or the structure that's allowing the showing up. But once the showing up is done, the emphasis on it's not about what I do, it's about who I be while I do the thing. The doing is still there, but the emphasis is on the being part that then penetrates the do, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So, and that's what I sense in you very strongly, which is why I'm very drawn towards you as an inspiration in my life and a strong woman that activates me and inspires me by the way that you choose to weave the world and the way that you choose to see life is from a very grounded space. And I think in the spiritual community, there's a lot of individuals that are very much in the 5D. However, when it comes to like having our feet on the earth and following through with the things that we said that we would do, it starts to fall short. And then it's hard for me to receive the teachings of an individual that is not fully embodied. Because it's the embodiment that the frequency lands in the body.
Yeah.
So when you speak, your wisdom lands for me. Because it's coming from an embodied place.
Thank you. That is the biggest compliment that you could give me, because I've spent a lifetime sort of, like I'll talk about like mood making. Like there's a lot of people making a mood about meditation, and like now it's on to psychedelics and sex. It's like almost like meditation is passé. And I'm like, wait, everybody, like, please, for the love of all things holy, like please start a meditation practice before you start blasting yourself open with 5-MeO DMT and going to tantra retreats and having orgies. And like all those things can be amazing. But like, if you're like truly, I've had great experiences at all of those things. But like, if you don't have the ability to like ground and rest and integrate and change your own state of consciousness internally, then that stuff can be bifurcating. It can create fractures if you don't know how to reintegrate yourself. The whole point of it is to be an expansion of psychedelics, breath work, sacred sexuality. They expand you open, which is amazing. But if you don't know how to bring yourself home or have this foundation on which to build those things, then I find that they can be not as effective. And to your point, like no one wants to learn meditation from someone who is stressed. No one wants to take financial advice from someone who doesn't have any money. And in this day and age where everyone is becoming a coach, it's like, great. Like if you know A, teach A. If you know B, teach B. So I'm not like one of those people that's like, everyone's a coach. But it's like, I do think we want to equip people who are on the upward spiral to help people who are not. And to your point, if you're not embodied, if you're not practicing what you're preaching, it's just not going to be as impactful.
Yeah, I mean, Matrix is over at the side of this podcast right now. He's just clicking, he's waving his hands in the air, he's feeling it, he's vibing it.
Matrix, the unsung hero of today's
he
show.
really is. We're just like massive shout out to Matrix right now for all of the magic and the energy that you hold for the queens that come on this podcast and the kings and everything in between. So grateful for you, brother. So moving forward, you talked about you have a vision for bringing X amount of individuals all in one space and creating a pleasure practice. I would love for you to just break this down just for a second, because I'm sure there's somebody that's sitting at home that's probably choking on the peach that they're eating right now. Like, like, what? You want to bring all these humans together and do what? And yet also it's this pattern interrupt, courageous heart that I do believe is the pioneering energy for a new paradigm. And so I'd love to hear your perspective on what is your why behind wanting to create an experience where there are X amount of people, large amounts of people in the same space, creating a pleasure practice? And what do you feel like that would actually contribute to the fabric of the collective consciousness moving forward?
So the original vision, I was on my 1 year anniversary in Santa Fe on the sacred Qigong ground. And I met this amazing woman named Amanda, and she asked for permission, and she's like, may I? And she put her hands on my knees, and she's basically asking to like read my field or tap into my future. And she was like, that's weird. Like, what? She's like, this is normally my dream. And I was like, what? And she's like, but this is clearly you. You're on a stage, and it's not just you. There's a lot of women around you. And it's not just that, it's this Dallas Cowboy Stadium. There's 80,000 people there. And what was weird is that I had been having that vision as well. Like, not Dallas Cowboy Stadium. I didn't know it was 80,000 people, but I've been having a dream of like me and a lot of women in a circle with a stadium filled with people. And I didn't know exactly what it was, but a few weeks later, it's like the whole run of show dropped in. And now I can feel the frequency of that. And I had an Akashic record reading at New Year's that was like, yes, keep going. Liberation through pleasure, but let go of the container and let go of the timing, right? Like, it's not necessarily this container. And if you try and push it on your timeline, then you're going to pull, like if you try and pull the rubber band faster than it can sustainably hold itself, you're going to have the snapback and you're going to create suffering. And they were talking like, burned at the stake type suffering. So like, while I've been really protected so far, it was basically a warning that like, on nature's time, not your time. On nature's time, not your time. So that doesn't diminish me from the audacity of the dream, because I think that there's magnetism in the audacity of the dream. But what I am now more flexible around is like how we get there. And then just last night we had like a little mini council meeting, a few of us.
It was so special.
It was so special. And so it was, myself and you and Layla and Aubrey and Vailana. And Aubrey was sort of challenging me on this, right? And he's like, why? Why do you want to do this in public? Why press? Why cameras? Like, is this just a fuck you? And I was like, no, there's zero fuck you energy in this. It is like the fact that we even think that pleasuring ourselves is sinful or bad or audacious, and yet we'll watch war movies and video games, and the fact that no one asked for consent to talk about someone being shot, no one asked for consent before punching someone in the face, fighting, boxing, this stuff is happening. People are paying money for that. Fighting someone, killing someone, this is okay. But pleasure, reminding ourselves that God is actually inside of us, that somehow this has become the devil, that this has become wrong and a sin, again, is just so incomprehensible to me. I really cannot believe that we have managed to forget that we're actually God. And it's been so many tens of thousands of years that it feels audacious when it's really not. And I am not a ding dong. Like, I recognize how much conditioning we're all swimming in. And so I like the idea of us maybe like doing it in private, secretly doing it, getting, 500 people, then 5,000 people, then 10,000 people. And maybe it's on someone's private land. And we don't bring the cameras yet. We don't bring the press yet. But what I think will happen is that we get into coherence with ourselves. We get into coherence with each other, and we offer up these prayers, not only for ourselves, but we offer up these prayers for the collective. And I know that you have seen this before, right? Like, there's one person praying is amazing. 1,000 people with the same prayer is 1,000x more powerful. It's not 1,000 times more power. It's to the infinite. We start to talk multitudes more power. And so my theory is that if we can get tens of thousands, maybe eventually stadiums, network together, people all climaxing, it, like thinning the veil between the unmanifest and the unmanifest, right? In these extraordinary ecstatic states, holding a collective prayer for the species, that the planet is regenerative, that humans are living in harmony with the planet, that we are living in harmony with each other. My theory is that it will change the timeline of the species. And the reason why this does not feel audacious to me is that if we don't pattern interrupt, then like the bus is currently heading off the cliff.
Mhm.
Like it's
Mhm.
it's like, or we could just let the planet keep burning. Does that feel like a smart, like that seems audacious to me, actually.
And that's what I said to you yesterday in the kitchen. I said, thank you so much for your courage. Or the kitchen somewhere. And your response was something along the lines of, I mean, it's either this or we run ourselves off the edge of the cliff. Like,
Yeah.
It's kind of just like the choice is choice.
Yeah.
And I thought that was such a beautiful response because it does place an emphasis on the way that we are weaving in the world, the way that we are consuming, the way that we are treating each other, the wars that are living within inside of our own heads, therefore subsequently contributing to the wars that we see on the planet, the division mentality. I mean, there's just so much that's going on. The way that we're operating from this foot forward is that we're finite right now. We don't have, much time here.
And is it even the world we want to be living in?
Mm-hmm.
Or is this really what we choose?
Mm-hmm.
Like if we could make a different paradigm, would we?
You said something about the hair analogy of how much time we've actually been here.
Oh, yeah.
Can you share that?
Yeah. So in the Museum of Natural History, which I go to a lot because, again, I have a 4-year-old paleontologist in my family. So there's this beautiful called the Hayden Planetarium. There's a giant sun, and it's basically like the whole building. It's like 4 stories high, whole sun. And they made it to give you a scale of like, here's Mercury and here's Earth and here's Jupiter. So you can see the size of the sun in relationship to the other planets. And then there's this spiral walkway that goes all the way around the sun. And it's basically, you start on the 3rd floor and it's the beginning of time, like however many hundreds of millions of years ago. And you take one step is like 100 million years, and each step, and you just see like, oh, 1 floor down, here's dinosaurs, and here's another era of dinosaurs, and here's another era of dinosaurs. Oh, and here's like reptiles, and here's this, and here's trees. And then the last step you take, there's a single strand of human hair. And that is how long humans have been on Earth. And it's this real lens shift. Like you pull the lens way back and you realize like we're so narcissistic and we can't help but think that this is all there is. But that Earth has been around for a long time, really long time. Mm-hmm. And so when you think that like dinosaurs probably thought that they weren't going to go extinct, and people are like, oh, save the planet, save the planet. I'm like, this is not about the planet. The planet will be fine. She might shake us off, but she will be fine. Mm-hmm. The question is, what do we want our existence to be on this planet for the time that we have left? And my thing, I mean, now, especially being a mom, my son is 4. By 2050, I'm not great at math, but let's say that puts him in his like 30s or something. There's supposed to be more plastic in the ocean than fish by 2050.
Say that again.
By 2050, there's supposed to be more plastic in the ocean than fish, like by volume, by weight. Mm-hmm. And like the thought of my son like swimming in plastic and not seeing any fish in the ocean, it's like, no, that's not it. Mm-hmm. And just like you will abuse and neglect your body when you don't feel connected to it, I feel that's what we're doing to the earth. We're like abusing and neglecting the earth because we don't feel connected to her. And so again, the hypothesis is that if we can reconnect to the ecology of our own bodies, then we can start to reconnect to the planet. And if at the very least, it's just like, we learn how to pray in a more powerful way. And if we take all of the energy that we spend worshiping our worries and start to spend that worshiping our dreams, like 1, it would just be a lot more fun place to live. And 2, they might even start coming true.
Mm-hmm. Just you saying worshiping our worries as opposed to worshiping our dreams, I can feel the internal shift that happens in the way that I perceive my day and how the worries are so much louder than the dreams. Yeah. And yet the dreams are actually all here. It's just because of how loud the worries are, and then it obstructs my ability to receive the dream that's actually already been made manifest. And that's an individual responsibility that we all have to genuinely create a more beautiful world than our hearts know is possible. Yeah. Is to take ownership of what's going on between our ears.
And I would offer that to do that, to make that shift organically from worshiping your worries to worshiping your dreams is very, very challenging, almost impossible if you don't have a handle on your neurochemistry. Like if you are swimming in adrenaline and cortisol and fight or flight, if your body thinks that it's being attacked at any given moment, it is virtually impossible to actively worship your dreams. I mean, you can, but it's hard. It requires a lot of white knuckling. And so that's why, I mean, I know I'm evangelical about this, but truly like meditation is like step one for manifesting, because you have to get out of fight or flight and into stay and play. You have to change this neurochemistry so that you have the luxury, really, the privilege then of being able to direct your attention where you choose. Because otherwise this meat suit's trying to survive. And you're not going to be able to override survival in the body with some happy thoughts about your dreams.
How do you feel like meditation plays a role in allowing us to shift from survival into thriving within the somatic experience of our body and our nervous system?
So when we get stressed, we go into fight or flight, right? Everybody knows this, but like the physiologically what happens is body starts preparing for a tiger attack. So it will, heart rate increases, blood pressure increases, bladder and bowels evacuate so you can be light on your feet so you're like weighed down. Your vision starts to narrow so you're focused on your opponent. Your your digestion floods with acid to shut down digestion because you need all hands on deck to fight or flee the tiger. That acid seeps onto your skin so you don't taste very good if the tiger bites you. Your blood starts to thicken and coagulate, so if the tiger bites you, you don't bleed out. So all of these chemical responses are really useful if your demands are predators. But now our demands in most parts of the world are not predatory attacks, right? Now it's in-laws and deadlines and emails and banks collapsing and new AIs coming out and just being asked to adapt. And so now what we do when we meditate, and with Ziva specifically, we're giving the body rest that's 5 times deeper than sleep. So within a 15-minute meditation, it's the equivalent of almost an hour and a half of rest, but without a sleep hangover on the other side. And so then you go in and you de-excite the nervous system and you start to get rid of that adrenaline and cortisol, which are stress hormones, which make the body acidic and not taste good. And then almost immediately we start to flood the brain and body with dopamine and serotonin, which are bliss chemicals, which feel good in the moment, but then good news, they stay with you even outside of the meditation. So that bliss starts to permeate the other 23 hours of the day, which is what you're responding to when you see like those roots or that groundedness or that claiming that I'm like, that's what that is. That's me accessing this thing that is much bigger than me and then bringing it with me into the rest of the day, not just in meditation. But main thing for most people, it's like get out of fight or flight, get into stay and play, like get the body into not only homeostasis, but into this alkaline, blissed out nature so that you have options, so that you can adapt, so that you can start to think about your dreams if you choose.
See, right there, that's a prime example of you marrying your study and your wisdom and your time spent learning, and then also your intuition and your feeling and the realm of understanding emotional waters. And those two partnered together allows the message to land. I understand what you're saying. And it lands in a very grounded, practical, helpful way for my mind to digest so my body can receive it.
Yes. That's all I'm doing. You're like, how can you teach people to meditate? All I'm doing, like, honestly, like I don't teach a 1-day meditation course, but I could, because it's not hard. It is simple, but people confuse simplicity with ease, right? It's not easy. It's simple, but it's not easy. So and most of what I'm doing in my course is getting people's intellect to catch up to why they should devote their most valuable resource, which is their time and their attention, to sitting still and doing nothing. Now, we're not doing nothing, okay? Just like when you go to sleep at night, you ain't doing nothing. If anyone has read Why We Sleep, you know that we are not doing nothing. You go like 3 days without sleep and you like increase your chances of cancer by 1,000,000,000% or something. Like sleep is imperative for the body's restorative processes. You're not doing anything. You are not doing anything when you're sleeping, but body is healing very, very elegantly. Same thing is true in this style of meditation. You're not doing anything. You're not visualizing. You're not chanting. You're not praying. You're not breathing. You're not doing anything, but your body sure is. Like body goes into this deeply restful state. the neuroplasticity starts to increase between the right and left hemispheres of the brain, which strengthens the corpus callosum, which is the bridge between the right and left hemispheres. So left brain is in charge of individuality, but right brain is in charge of totality. And most of us, like you said, there is sort of either or. We're either like fully here in the 3D, totally stressing about our taxes and traffic, or we're just like, it's fine, I'm going to manifest on my vision board and I'm never going to go to work again. And to have this like simultaneity of like, I know how to pray and I know how to move my feet. This is quite rare. And it's why I love this tradition so much. And it's why I love this practice so much, is because it puts equal weight on both the human and the divine, the right brain and the left, and that the practice itself is about merging the two together.
Mm-hmm. Which is that beautiful awakened state, which is what we see depicted as the third eye, the eye of Horus. It sits right in between the left and the right hemispheres of the masculine and the feminine poles of the or lobes of the brain, which sits in the center point, which is the third eye, to be able to see beyond the illusion and beyond the veil of the distortion of everything we've been told up until this point that's not in vibrational alignment with our truth or the direction that we're supposed to be moving in. And so it sits there for a reason. And I think we can get caught up in this narrative of thinking that, well, female or feminine is to females and masculine is to males. Like, it's so far from that. It's a recognition of energetics within our own psyche and the rebalancing of those pieces so that we can activate that awakened state that is that beautiful, sweet balance right between the two. So I just want to say thank you for the work that you've done to align those two lobes of your brain and to be able to create service from that space and spaces for other people to be able to meet themselves in an empowered nature, because that's what's going to take. And the only way that your teachings and what it is that you share can really land is from that place of embodiment that we talked about before. And it is landing and it is impacting so many people, 50,000 people that have got through your program. Holy shit, that's so many humans. From your books to you standing on stage in your activations, to your pleasure practice, to the meditation courses, to your sisterhood, for being a mother, to being a lover, and to being and now a podcast host as well, which is so exciting.
Oh, it's so exciting. Thank you so much for letting me share this magical space with you. It feels like such an honor to like step into like all of the juju and all of the depth that the portal that you've created right here. Truly, what an honor.
It's so fun. We've had a really great week. We've been creating content nonstop. We've been powerfully playing. We've been having dance parties. We've been doing sauna cold plunge every morning.
Every day.
It's been such a gift
Truly
to be able
my
to
dream.
Just get to know you more, Emily Fletcher. You're a fabulous, fabulous, fabulous human being.
I hope this is just the beginning of a really epic life adventure together.
Yeah, I feel it. I'm really excited. I'm getting shivers all down my right side right now. For all of those beautiful humans that feel really drawn to you or want to continue to follow you on the adventures of what you're creating, would you be open to sharing with us a little bit more about how we can find you?
Yes. Well, hopefully by the time this comes out, the podcast will be out already. So the podcast is called Why Isn't Everyone Doing This? We have the amazing Blue as one of our guests. And it's really built on that idea of like when you find something that's so good and you have that thought, like, why isn't everyone doing this? So we're going to examine those and then the why. Also, zivameditation.com. That's where all my courses are. I'd say our most popular is Ziva Online. That's a 15-day training in mindfulness, meditation, and manifesting. And that's the one that I've gifted you. So if you ever do, I think it'd be fun to do like a challenge with your crew.
Yeah.
And then like you just like go on the ride together, and then I'd be happy to do a live or something like that where we could like share experiences.
I love that.
And then on Instagram, I'm at Ziva Meditation, Ziva. But if you want Jasper content, it's Emily Stella Fletcher.
So son, it's highly worth the follow. Definitely.
And I do have a free masterclass, which is just zivameditation.com/podcast.
Oh, perfect.
And it's just a deeper dive into the neuroscience of the style of meditation that I teach.
Amazing. Thank you so much for being on the Deja Blu Podcast. It's been a long time coming. Such a gift to be able to continue to weave with you. And may your podcast touch the hearts and the souls and the minds of millions of people around the world. And may they be illuminated by the frequencies of your voice and your discernment around your guests, for those that have impacted your life in ways that can translate a message through the embodiment piece. And may your podcast continue to be filled with so much fun and so much play that when you show up, you realize all your dreams are being made manifest in this reality right now as it stands. And thank you for inspiring me the way that you weave your podcast already, just the being able to be a guest. And so my prayers and my blessings are with you on all of the endeavors that you create from this point forward. And thank you so much for your service.
I love you.
I love you too.
And you too, you sweet angel.
And Schneebe.
Hi.
Alrighty, beautiful humans. Thank you so much for tuning into another episode of the Deja Blu Podcast. Such a gift to have you here. If you resonated with today's episode, then please go ahead and share it on your Instagram story so that we can spread a message in a good way, so that we can reach many more people than we can with our own individual platforms. Go ahead and tag myself and Ziva Meditation and the Deja Blu Podcast so that we can all repost and all of the good things and stay connected. If you love today's episode and you've got something to share about it, or whatever it is that's on your heart around today's episode, then please go ahead and put it in the comment section. Allow us to interact with you and just to get a feel for how this lands in your heart and what you receive from this episode. So may you find the stillness within your day, and may you lace magic into the mundane, recognizing that very powerful beings are those that are willing to A, take ownership of their whole experience, B, take aligned action of non-negotiables of creating more stillness in their day, and C, balancing their masculine and feminine principles within their own psychology so that they can actually move forward and find that really sweet, juicy spot between the go and the flow. Until next week, thanks for tuning in. Sending love.